Hello, you multi-mashups. And thank you to Caroline D131 for that malt mention. Welcome to Ralphie Review 1028 Extras. Extra content, extra perspective, extra delivery of my experience to you to help you with a very important thing. Your malt moments. They're very important. And they are definitely a thing. So I've just reviewed a Knock 12-year-old, which I bought for £45 a bottle. So a very good value, very, very good quality single malt, which is consistent from batch to batch. In other words, what I'm saying is when you buy a Knock, you're not going to pour a glass and say, it's not as good as last time, perhaps I've got a bad batch. There are distilleries who are learning some very necessary lessons from falling sales because they are inconsistent from batch to batch and version to version in the consistency of what they bottle. When distilleries consistently bottle quality, best version, batch after batch after batch, which isn't rocket science, it's not difficult to do. All you need is a decent budget for your casks and experienced skilled staff who know what they're doing. But with some distilleries, we can go from a great whiskey to a duffer in one purchase. And the result is that people say, I don't want to buy another bottle of that for a while. Maybe it's me. This is something we do. We blame ourselves, say, oh, maybe my palate's off. And then you come back in a month's time, you try the same whiskey and it's still not right. It's still not as good as the last time. It's still not feeling and experiencing like value for money. And therefore you check with your friends and they confirm your suspicions. What do you do then? Let the distillery know. Call them out on it. Tell them why you're disappointed. Not that you just put one glass, one pour, and then you just didn't like it because you were having an off day. As soon as you articulate why there's a problem with their bottle of whiskey, they're more inclined to take notice and hopefully, fingers crossed, if they want to hold on to their reputation and if they want to hold on to their sales, and not have to rely on more disingenuous, expensive marketing to try and paper over the cracks, then they will be more consistent in what they bottle. This is a reason why I buy a Knock on a regular basis in my channel. As much as I buy anything on a regular basis, is the consistency and the respect that this distillery shows to the customer by being consistent. And I'll cheers to that. But an hour ago, I reviewed this bottle. Beautiful, fragrant, soft, unpeated, elegant, refined, and very well made. See, the thing is, this creates an opportunity. Now, we could do this with Glenfiddich, which is an excellent canvas to do this. We could do this with Glenlivet, which is competent. We might not do it with Glen Grant because Glen Grant is inconsistent with their bottlings. So we want a consistent, reputable malt, which is something we spend time with. We enjoy spending time with it because it's worthwhile and it's affordable and it's engaging and it connects with us. And we know that we've invested in something which we've been happy to buy, because it's good quality. So what we do is we have a look around the other bottles of whiskey which we have open, because long gone are the days, malt mates, where people would open one bottle of whiskey, finish it in a day, a week, even a month. Heaven help, don't finish a bottle of whiskey in a day. You're not a whiskey aficionado, you're an alcoholic. I'm just telling you straight. Understand it. It's tough love, I can't put it any other way. If you're drinking a bottle of whiskey a day, you've got a problem. You need to seek help for the sake of yourself and sake of the family and for the sake of people who no longer really want to be your friends, or family who no longer want to be your friends. Alcoholism is a big deal, and this is why we focus smaller quantity, better quality. This is an important ratio, and we want to invest in that. So we look at some of our other quality opened bottles of whiskey, because we're now in the stage, Maltmates. Wherever we are in the world, we'll maybe have a dozen bottles of whiskey open, or in my case, significantly more, but hey, it's just part of the landscape for me. But we're not going to rush it. But it is creating opportunities, because we can add one whiskey to another and see what it delivers. This is the fast track to educating our palate. Now, I've mentioned this in videos, in extras, a number of times over the last few years. But it's such an important opportunity. It's worth mentioning again, because I really want you to try it and see for yourself. So I'll take another bottle of whiskey, good quality, significant, beautiful whiskey. This one's heavily peated. It's Port Charlotte, 10-year-old from Bruichladdich Distillery in Islay. These two whiskies, Maltmates, are very, very different. They are as different as it gets. Soft, complex Speyside, 12 years, 10-year-old, young, slightly younger, complex, heavily peated Islay single malt. This is giving the Speyside character. This is giving more of the Highland, Island, heavily peated, specifically Islay character. What happens when we bring them together? Now, when we bring them together, do so very, very slowly and very, very carefully. Now, bear in mind this is bottled at 50%, so we'll need very, very little of it. In fact, I recommend the less you put in, the better. I've put in about 5 drops. What we do then is we bring the whiskey together by super gentle rolling inside the glass. The benefit we have for doing this is, first and foremost, we've had these bottles of whiskey open. We already know them. We have points of reference, accurate points of reference from slow sipping and loads of smelling as to the identity and character, not just of the flavours, but of the sensations of these whiskies. Both these whiskies are sensation rich. Sensation, sweet, sour, bitter, salt, and a little bit of grain savoury. And of course, the savoury is enhanced in the Port Charlotte because it's a little bit smoky and it's quite a bit peaty. Now, we've put a tiny drop of that into that because we don't want to swamp that. And then we nose it. I'm not getting any of their peat notes because I've added so little of this. But what I'm noticing immediately on the nose is that there is a more fullness and richness of the fruity notes from the Anok. So in fact, we've not changed the flavour so much, although it's early days yet, and this is going to last you an hour or so. Don't rush it. But the peatiness has just lifted the fruitiness of this whiskey without actually delivering any significant peaty tang to the nose of this. So, a major point I want to make here is when you're blending your whiskies, actually add very, very little from one to the other. In fact, if anything, get yourself, I've got one here, a dropper. Get yourself a little packet of plastic droppers off of eBay so that literally you can put one drop of one whiskey, right, into the glass. Single drop. Now you may say to yourself, hey Ralphie, what's the point in that? That's not going to make any difference. Actually it will. It would surprise you just how even a single drop of heavily peated whiskey will enrich and change slightly the dynamics of a soft, unpeated Speyside. You could use Glenfiddich, you could use Glenlivet. I'm using Annoch. Why? Because Annoch, in my opinion, is a superior quality to both Glenlivet standard bottling and Glenfiddich standard bottling. Glenlivet and Glenfiddich standard bottlings. The fruitiness has become more ripe. The lemon has become a little bit more peachy, a little bit more melon note coming through. At this point, it's engaging. It grabs our attention. And importantly, it slows down our actual physical consumption of the whisky so that we get more out the nose, and then subsequently we get more out the taste because we already know it without this minimal blending. In previous videos, I've emphasised, add a little bit to a little bit of that and see what you get. But what I haven't emphasised is how little you actually need, particularly when you've got a seasoned palate. So get yourself a plastic dropper, or if it's handy, just get yourself a straw. A straw will do just fine to actually control the small volume you're adding. Will I taste it? It wouldn't be right if I didn't. And then tell you a little bit about it. I can taste the peat in the background. The peatiness has fruited up the fruitiness of the Annoch. It's suppressed the bitter note in the Annoch. The combination of the two whiskies are still as softly sweet and aromatic. The aromatic has now enhanced, and bear in mind, and this is important, and I've only just added it, so we're really at the beginning of the event. Now this event can last you several hours into the evening. You may even want to leave it overnight in the cool corner of your whisky shed or whisky room and come back to it the following day. You may even decide you're going to invest in these little tiny bottles and pour the glass into a bottle to prevent rapid oxidization, and then you're going to come back to it in a couple of days. You may even decide, and here's another option, to get a series of empty miniatures which you can buy on Amazon, eBay. Make sure they're glass, but they don't actually have to be glass, but ideally glass. Invest in a couple of dozen of these bottles and actually start to fill the bottles with this, and then add subsequently larger, small portions of this, or whatever you've got handy, whatever you've got opened. It doesn't cost a lot to do this, but my goodness, you learn so much from the experience. You are, in fact, you're developing serious blender skills, because once you've done a few quick mixes, just for the novelty of it, you're refining it further, you're building on that experience and developing it more. And the results are fascinating, and in fact they're enhanced by the fact that what you're creating is unique to you and frankly has never been bottled. It's never been blended. It's never been bottled. It's never been brought together. You're the first person to do it with the whiskies you have, and it is so enjoyable. And it really helps you to understand how blending really works and how two prominent characters can come together, not half and half, not 1/3, 2/3, but when you add a tiny drop of the stronger character to the less strong character, and you see what you get. The arrival's fuller, there's more going on. The creaminess is still intact. It's almost soft, almost white toffee note, fudgy, rich, super saturated barley sugar notes. the development at the moment, the peat starts to just kind of fade away as it gets assimilated into the Anok. It's a little bit gingery. There's a few kind of red fruit notes creeping in now. A little bit of soft raspberry, which you would never get until you actually did this. So you're actually creating distinctive flavours. But of course, you've got experience to know that you don't just guzzle it back in 10 or 15 minutes. You make it last for several hours while you have poured another whisky in parallel to it. Not a lot, just as a side-by-side comparison of a single malt with what you're micro-blending, and then see where it takes you. The journey is fascinating. When you do this, you get so much more out of what you've invested your time and money and research in. And here's the clincher. It is very, very rare that you get bad results when you take two good quality bottlings of whisky and you bring them together. If you really want to do this on a tight budget, just buy a bottle of blend. You can even buy a bottle of Johnnie Walker Red Label if you want. It's going cheap at the moment. I've seen it's the cheapest whisky in my local supermarket at the moment because they're desperately trying to get it out there. Go ahead and buy a bottle. You know it's going to be rough. But see, as soon as you add a drop of Port Charlotte to your Johnnie Walker Red Label, my good, it can only improve. And it will. Absolutely. See, modern blends, not that many people have a blend with ice in it. Many people are having whisky cocktails, whisky macs, whisky sours, whisky aromatics, whisky with a straw and an olive in it. I kid you not, this is what bars do to try and make more money. Or they'll have whisky with lemonade, whisky with dandelion and burdock. That's becoming increasingly fashionable now as an alternative to Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola, people are adding Coke to blended whisky more and more. I would say if you're going to do that, green tea, I'll do an extras in this before too long, on one of the best mixes with any whisky, malt or blend, is green tea. Unsweetened. Cheers. Hope you've enjoyed this. Every time I'm tasting this, it's just getting better and better and better. It's not just a novelty, malt mix. It's not just a novelty. It's seriously rewarding. And particularly for those who have done a bit of blending and often blend a little, maybe 1/3 to 2/3 to get a more even assimilation of two malts into a third style of malt blend. To literally just 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, and just take your time. It's marvellous how the whiskies recompose themselves in the glass over time as they assimilate, as they marry together. And then, of course, you can take it further when you blend into your miniature bottle. If I got a miniature bottle here, I usually have a miniature of something lying about in the bothy, but I've had a clear up recently, so I don't. Anyway, here's a small bottle. You could use, it's a bit on the large side, this is 20 centilitres, but you could use this, and I tell you, you're going to get phenomenal results. Think about it. You're creating a whisky in your space, which is utterly unique to you, and nobody else in the world can even smell it and taste it until you offer it to them. And when you offer it to them, you do it blind and ask them, what do you think of this? And the entertainment value you'll get in your whisky club or your little whisky posse or whisky group when you present whiskies blind that you've just micro-blended together and just see what they have to say. It's fascinating. I'm done here. I'm over. I don't want to get I don't want to be getting waxing too lyrical about this because it's so enjoyable. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe for updates, because this year in particular, I'm going to be getting more diverse in my reviews. I'm going to be later in the year reviewing a few more rums for summer. So another guest spirit for summer. And then I'm going to go into an auction bot season of about 4 reviews, a mini series reviewing whiskies I specifically bought at auction. I'll tell you I'll tell you basically how I obtained them, but for my Patreon subscribers, I'm going to go for a much deeper dive and tell you what I paid, what I was outbid on, what I was trying to buy, why I bought them, what I was prepared to budget for them, which auction house I used, and how satisfied I am with my purchase. Now, while I'm at it, I'm going to give you more advice on how to avoid fakes at auction. It's what I'm here for, delivering malt moments. That is my purpose. This is why the malt bothy was built over 200 years ago, to fulfill its future destiny and to have the most incredible smells and reeks of whiskey that any bothy has ever experienced, ever. See you soon.